Are you ready?
Really sure?
Are you
Really
sure?
sure? Because
You
it's
want to do this?
irrevocable.
Here
It's
we go.
irrevocable.
Here we go.
I'm
It's
ready.
live.
Here we go, yo. That's an
Mm-hmm.
all-timer. That's like
Scenario.
top 10 all time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you weren't listening to Leaders of the New School, Busta Rhymes at that time, but you were listening to Tribe Called Quest and you heard that song, you're like, oh my god, I have to. Oh my god, oh my god, rah rah like a dungeon dragon.
Right. There was what is it? It's like a compilation. It's called The Rub, and it does hip hop for that year.
Uh huh.
So I think I just downloaded like 1990 through 95 or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And it's like this 3 hour block
Oh.
of that year's hip hop.
Oh. Well,
It's awesome.
88 would be the number one, of course. But you're really taking me down memory lane when we were lucky to be kids during the golden age of hip hop because almost every week it felt like 93, 94, 95. There was something new that was totally different than anything you'd heard before.
Totally different and counterculture.
Yeah.
It was the rebel music and it wasn't mainstream. So anyway, we're old now. We're not rebels anymore. Well, a little bit, always, of course, right? It's in your blood. Okay, let's get this thing going. In three, two, one. Training camp continues and rolls across the National Football League, and we are here to discuss things with you. It is the Audible, Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, and we got to talk about everything that's going down in the National Football League. We're going to do some training camp news and notes today and tomorrow, and we're going to start with some big time injuries. The Brandon Ayuk one is the one I wanted to start with, Bloom, because Ayuk was supposed to be that guy for the 49ers. And now with a hamstring injury, and we know with a very quick and fast receiver like the rookie from Arizona State, it can be devastating. It can linger if you don't give it time. But this was the guy. And the 49ers target in the first round, of course, was Brandon Ayuk. That's the guy they wanted. That's the guy that they saw as being perfect for their system with Deebo Samuel, but Samuel's banged up. You've had players opt out. You've had other receivers in the 49ers wide receiver core get banged up. And now Ayuk with this hamstring has them, scouring the waiver wire once again, the free agent pool
Yeah.
to to sign more receivers.
Again.
Well, right. What they signed Jalen Hurd like a week ago or whatever.
Well, after Hurd went down, they signed like Tavon Austin, and
Tavon
remember,
Austin. Right.
Travis Benjamin opted out.
Mm-hmm.
Richie James is
They signed
hurt.
Jerron Brown, right?
Yeah, Jerron Brown.
Yeah, so many, right? So here we go. More injuries for the 49ers. And this time it's a big one.
Yeah, well, it is a big one because it may affect your late round strategy, or I don't know. Brandon Ayuk might have been moving earlier than that. Uh, so they call it a mild hamstring strain. He was having a good camp. Let's not lose this. Brandon Ayuk was having a very good camp, unlike some other rookies, and he was in line to start and maybe against Arizona be a very important part of this pass offense enough that maybe you're not going to start him week one, but you certainly want to have him on your bench to see where things go. Now we're not sure he's going to be ready for week one. We're still not sure that Deebo Samuel's going to be ready for week one. But in this low volume pass offense, can Jimmy Garoppolo really support more than one weekly play? Probably not. Not when you have George Kittle. Not when you
Right.
have this running game. Not when
Right.
you have Jerick McKinnon, knock on wood, staying healthy to provide a running back receiving role. So you could see, and Deebo Samuel not going to practice this week, so we're still not sure about Deebo. Just want him to avoid PUP. I think still early October, late September. But if Ayuk is not fully healthy, because as Dr. Gene tells us, Cease, when a player misses a couple of weeks, now you have an extra amount of time to ramp back up conditioning, which also introduces an injury risk in and of itself before you really ask the player to do everything you would ask them to do in a typical game. And with Ayuk, because he's a rookie, that's even more so. So maybe Ayuk is truly full speed by week 3, week 4, which is just when Deebo Samuel's coming back, and they do have overlap in their game. So I think this takes a lot of appeal off of Ayuk. Really, what you're describing, Cease, from a larger point of view, is just carnage in this wide receiver group. Even Dante Pettis, who's gotten that opportunity, has been very inconsistent. So things can change when the lights turn on, but Dante Pettis is probably not going to be the answer. Trent Taylor's going to get some catches out of the slot also to complicate things. Kendrick Bourne is still there. Another guy that's going to complicate things, right? Again, pointing to there's going to be one at most 49ers receiver that we want. Now with this Ayuk injury, it's probably not him. But we do like the man got paid George Kittle, right? A lot more goes to George Kittle. Just can't wait for that San Francisco Arizona till week 1 because that was must see TV last year.
Gonna be a lot of DFS teams built on that game, that's for sure. This episode, we might as well just recategory like wide receiver injuries and
Yeah.
some junk. I'm not talking about the Bears quarterback situation, but we will be talking about that later in this show. Terrell Williams with the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's still going to take some time to get used to saying Las Vegas Raiders in the beautiful Death Star Stadium, but torn labrum in his shoulder. Gonna try to play through it. Kind of reminds me of last year, Bloom, when he tried to play through his foot injury and he just didn't look good. And he's supposed to be their number 2. He was never supposed to be their number 1. The number 1 was supposed to be Antonio Brown. Then it was Terrell Williams. He struggled. Now their number 1 is Henry Ruggs, but Terrell Williams was supposed to be the 2. Now he's out. Brian Edwards comes in. You're thinking, okay, Brian Edwards and Hunter Renfrow. So you have a very young receiving core for Derek Carr, very exciting receiving core, right? With different skill sets, Ruggs with that speed, Edwards with that size, and Renfro's a new Brandon Stokely, basically. He's a perfect slot receiver. Okay, but then you're hearing about maybe Ruggs will play in some of the slots. So the Terrell Williams issue, okay, he's going to try to play through it. Bloom, it's not like fantasy GMs were lined up to get Terrell Williams, but this definitely impacts the other guys. And Edwards is a name the drumbeat has been steady with in a very positive light, not just fluff pieces, but positive reports about the rookie.
A lot to sort out here, right? And what we really need is Derek Carr. We need Derek Carr to bring this alive because
We need the preseason so we could see where he was throwing to.
Well, yes. But look, the offensive line is there, right? The pieces are there around him now, unlike last year. But we have to discern which pieces. So Tyrell Williams started out the season with touchdowns in 4 straight games. Then his foot issues flared up, both feet actually. He's going to try to play through this torn labrum, which, by the way, he played through an injury like this at Western Oregon. He played through an injury like this with the Chargers and produced, which is good news for him and his ability to play through injuries and produce. But we're not going to start. Look, just don't draft Tyrell Williams. You probably weren't anyway. But playing through a torn labrum, that's asking too much. But in the worst case scenario for all fantasy players, if he does play through it, now we're complicating this issue with Renfrow being the slot, came on at the end of the year last year. Ruggs is going to get plays. There's going to be plays that like Ruggs is going to get the ball on that play. Like they're calling a play specifically to get the ball in Ruggs' hands. Jet sweeps, bubble screens, quick slants, and things like that, and some deep shots by design off of play action. Then there's Brian Edwards. And the drum beat, by the way, Cecil, make sure to give you credit for this because drum beat has just completely become the industry norm for how to look for training camp news that matters. The drum beat on Edwards is deafening. And if you do the math, like solve for X, what would be causing this? Mm-hmm. Edwards is just really impressing everybody who's watching Raiders practices, right? You can just tell by the tone. I think the first thing I read about him was they were expecting him coming off of the foot injury that cost him, during the draft process. That's why he fell to the 3rd round. Because he had a prospect profile that you wouldn't necessarily say he doesn't belong in the 1st round. To show up in the SEC and right away at South Carolina. South Carolina's given us some great receivers. To right away show up at South Carolina and ball out.
It's like Keenan Allen when he fell to the 3rd round because of the meniscus, the PCL injury.
Exactly. But they said, they don't need Edwards this year. They were going to ease him in. He has other plans. That was basically the sentiment that I read. Clearly, by the way he's practicing, he had other plans. But you also have Darren Waller. You also have Josh Jacobs, who Vic Tafur said will easily double his catch total from last year, which get him into the 40s at least, if not into the 50s. In any given week, it's going to be really difficult. It's a good problem for the Raiders to have, but if Tyrell Williams is out there and he himself is not necessarily a viable fantasy option, but he's keeping other guys from being a viable fantasy option, it's just going to be whack-a-mole from week to week, especially if John Gruden, 1 week it's going to be Ruggs with a long touchdown. The next week, Renfrow is going to catch 7 for 100. The next week, Waller's going to catch 6 for 90. The next week, Edwards is going to have his breakout game. If Olsen and Gruden are drawing up good game plans, you're going to attack the weakness of the defense you're facing that week. Carolina might be everything. But then I think they're going to face New England, New Orleans, and Buffalo. So different weaknesses there, or potential lack of weakness if you're looking at, say, like New Orleans defense. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Raiders can adopt a different game plan every week depending on the opponent. But it's frustrating for fantasy, and the Tyrell Williams injury just made it more frustrating.
Yeah, frustration abounds. Bloom, we got a couple of Facebook questions I want us to answer here. From Frank, anything new about Devonta Freeman?
Well, we haven't had any serious running back injuries. So I think that's what teams are waiting for, because Devonta Freeman wanted money. He isn't just going to come in on a vet minimum, although, newsflash, you might have to come in on a vet minimum.
Right.
But,
imagine being his agent, being like, Devonta, vet minimum.
This is all you're going to get. Yeah.
Right.
So there just hasn't been a team with that need. I think that depending on how things shake out at the end of camp, there might be a team that look at their running back room and say, we could use someone like Devonta Freeman, maybe like the Titans, depending on what they think of Darrington Evans. It's a team like that would say, well, if our starter goes down, we want to have somebody that we feel is comfortable in a veteran presence kind of way. But I think at this point, it's been, uneventful. And as Dr. Gene would be here saying now, but first few weeks of the season. So Freeman might be better off waiting for the first few weeks of the season anyway in terms of opportunity.
Okay. Another one from Fosse. Hi, guys. How many IR spots do you recommend with COVID?
Yeah, I think 3 to 5 should do it. If 3 to 5 is not enough, then chances are they're going to be pausing the season, right? Or you're just really, really unlucky. Although on that note, Cease, something that we need to point out that happened this week, it was the rash of false positives. It was one lab in New Jersey. It was like 5 teams or 6 teams. I want to say the Steelers might have been one of them that had a ton. I mean, there's been really good news so far on the positive rates in the NFL for COVID since camp started. Although I don't think anybody was worried about camp because they're in a bubble during camp, basically. Not an official bubble, but basically they're in a bubble anyway.
Close enough.
Yeah. It's whenever the season starts and there's more opportunity to be doing things that might be putting you at risk. Anyway, that's fine. So far, so good. But if this false positive thing doesn't get worked out, then when the false positives come in on Saturday or Sunday, those players are going to sit. So it's funny that while overall the COVID picture is looking a little bit better in terms of player availability, this false positive problem introduces a whole other way that there could be some havoc. And the way that it was specifically certain teams, so depending on what they're doing, like which lab they're sending to, I'm assuming this lab will not get any more of the tests, but it was just a reminder that it's not just the actual problem of COVID. It just introduces another step in the process that could cause a player to be inactive. And if this was a week in the regular season, Cease, we might have had some games canceled with these teams having this many positives until they can investigate further and figure out what's going on. So I'm sure the league is looking at this too. Just something to note that went down that thankfully was a non-story in terms of COVID positives, but could be a big story in terms of not just the NFL. I mean, gamblers and fantasy, or just team availability. If they come back with 10 or 15 positives one week, they have to act as if those are true positives until they can get confirmation that they're not.
Okay, another one from Facebook. Tony says Hawkinson outlook took him late.
Tony, hey.
Fan outlook's better than Hawkinson, I'll tell you that. Because with Hawkinson, you're always just like, when's it? And I'll get into Albert O and all that. He's a monster, according to Nick Vanette. But with Hawkinson, I'm just so worried about him getting banged up again because he's still not 100%. They don't know when he's going to be.
Well, so there's been 2 ways of looking at this, right? He said, and Dr. Gene gave us some clarity on this.
See, there's your drink.
Yeah, that he said, reading in between the lines of Hawkinson's somewhat cryptic comments, he hasn't had a chance to really full speed test the injury the way you would in preseason. And that's something that could be an issue just when he does get back out there. But I will say this to talk people into Hawkinson, or if you were already targeting Hawkinson or you already took Hawkinson, to not talk you out of it is every day there's another glowing report about him. So Hawkinson is having a terrific training camp, getting open at will, putting on a show. It should be every opportunity for him to show why they took him in the top 10 last year if there's not another injury. So I'm not going to talk you out of TJ Hawkinson as one of those tight ends you take as part of a late round tight end plan, or your number 2 behind a strong number 1 that maybe you could trade your number 1 or Hawkinson breaks out, because if everything you wanted to hear out of camp, except him hemming and hawing a little bit about the ankle, you're hearing it.
May I pull on your heartstrings, Blue?
Please. Oh.
Hawkinson or Dan Arnold late?
Well, I mean, it's Hawkinson, but the thing is, you don't need to even take Dan Arnold. You can wait, and he's not going to get drafted. I thought you were going to say Logan Thomas, because those are the two guys, right? Dan Arnold and
Yep.
Logan Thomas.
I
Those
wrote
are the
about
two
both
guys.
of those guys yesterday for our newswire.
Yeah, and they're both having great camps. Like, if you were looking for, again, if you were holding Dan Arnold, I love playing in deep dynasty leagues. If you were holding Dan Arnold in the offseason, waiting to see what happened after he had that great week 17, after he scored twice in December, barely had been on the team for a week, you're hearing what you want to hear about Dan Arnold, not so much as he's taking over the tight end role. He's not going to be the number one tight end per se, but he can be the answer to their woes in the red zone. And that alone can make a tight end fantasy relevant, okay? Logan Thomas is absolutely becoming the number one tight end in the passing game for Washington. This is another team that has a lack of options. They're going to pass more than they did last year with the introduction of the Scott Turner offense. So those are late round guys that you don't even need to draft. See, so we're going to talk about them on the week 2 or week 3 waiver wire show. That's what we're looking at with them. Hawkinson, more like tight end 10 to 15 off the board, but absolutely if the camp reports carry over, opens with Chicago. So, we'll see what kind of. Remember, Hawkinson had a massive week 1 against Arizona, but then later on we found out everyone has a massive week against Arizona, and that solved that mystery.
You ready for another phrase that we're going to coin right here on this show? Because we have what the heck flex, right? And that's kind of trickled through. More people are saying what the heck flex, which is fantastic. And drumbeat, as you mentioned, the second draft. There are going to be so many injuries in the first 3 weeks of this season. Your waiver wire is going to be your second draft. So make sure you are ready. Spend those waiver bucks early, because you're going to have a second draft. And you're going to be selecting those players. Maybe it is a Dan Arnold, right? The guys that you didn't select, that's going to be your next round, because there's going to be a rash of injuries. We're seeing it a little bit now. This is 2011 all over again, minus the rash of Achilles injuries. And, we want everyone to stay healthy forever. But just the God's honest truth is, when you don't play football and then all of a sudden you play football, like in 2011 during the lockout, I talked to Adam Schefter yesterday and he was like, this is like 2011. I was like, exactly. It's exactly like that. And what happens when you start actually playing? Guys get hurt. So second draft. What is it? Second breakfast, right? I don't eat breakfast anymore. I'm trying to eat just one meal a day, although it is difficult sometimes, Bloom. It is very difficult. But second draft. Get ready for your second draft. Football Guys is here for you as well as the news and notes around training camp continues. And before we get there to Mike Williams, I got to say hello. And you say hello to your new favorite place to play fantasy football for real money. It's Underdog Fantasy. With Underdog, all you need to do, it's the fun part, the draft. Forget about injuries, trades, waivers, and setting lineups. Just set it, forget it, and wait for the winnings to come in. This year, they have a $1 million tournament. That's right. Just draft the best team, and you have a shot at $1 million in prizes. Sign up for Underdog today and enter the Best Ball Mania for a chance at $1 million in prizes by going to UnderdogFantasy.com. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, or searching for Underdog Fantasy in your app store. Make sure to enter that code FBG after you make your first deposit. That is UnderdogFantasy.com. Mike Williams is probably going to miss week 1 with the shoulder injury. Now, if we get super nerdy, I can tell you about Joe Reed, who I loved at the Shrine game with that speed from Virginia girl. Or I could tell you about KJ Hill, who I loved at the Senior Bowl with his run after the catch ability. So they've got a couple of guys, but they were thinking they were the threes, right? Joe Reed and KJ Hill, both rookies, were supposed to be working as the number 3. Now Williams is out. Okay, can they be a number 2? I wouldn't necessarily think so. I like better as 3s, but let's talk about this Williams injury and what it means for the Chargers passing attack with whoever is going to be throwing the ball.
This has been a real riddle in the offseason, Cecil, which is how
not a Ryan Riddle, a real riddle.
We love Ryan Riddle.
Yes, we do.
Always nothing but love out there to one time the all-time sack leader at Cal. Anyway, I was gonna go some gossip. That's for our celebrity gossip show. There was some celebrity gossip that may or may not have been about Aaron Rodgers. Did you see that, Cecil?
Which one?
Okay, good answer. Really, really good answer. I'm so happy to be doing this show with you right now, Cecil. Look, what we have here is the Chargers offense will change. It's not Phillip Rivers' offense anymore, and it's Tyrod Taylor's offense. And Tyrod Taylor with Anthony Lynn probably equals 450, 460, 470 pass attempts, probably. So that's problemos for Hunter Henry, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, at least in terms of trying to figure out these players' weekly and season-long ceilings. So maybe first and foremost, the lead here is, hey, if Mike Williams is going to be not healthy to start the season, at least at the beginning of the season. And I do think in fantasy drafts, you said second draft. The other side of that is almost treat it like the season is just the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then we'll reevaluate. So looking at that early season, you talk about those window seats. We can look at the schedule and have a good idea of early windows. And lo and behold, have you looked at the Chargers' first 3 weeks of the season? I don't know how much Tyrod Taylor's going to pass, but hey, against the Bengals and the Carolinas week 3, Kansas City week 2, so Bengals, Chiefs, Carolina, first 3 weeks of the season, those are some soft pass defenses that he can take advantage of. So now your Keenan Allen pick at a discount, your Hunter Henry pick at a slight discount. Remember what Taylor did with Charles Clay, and Austin Eckler. And hey, Taylor did some things with McCoy. McCoy got targeted enough in Buffalo. Those picks are looking a little better to at least get off to a decent start. Because the thing that I worry about, Cease, with Mike Williams, and it's a sprained AC joint, and I will be asking Dr. Gene about this, but we know this well enough, Cease, that when you're a big receiver who goes up for the ball the way Mike Williams does, you're going to come down on your head and shoulders sometimes. So will that injury get aggravated? Or alternatively, how will it affect his ability to do those full extension catches?
Yeah, range of motion.
Right. So this is not what you wanted to hear for a player like Mike Williams. For other receivers, it might not be as big of a deal. For a player like Mike Williams, I think it bumps him down to the bottom of his tier. But it does, again, create opportunities for other players in the passing game. And it's certainly going to be something we're going to watch that, again, like Tyra Williams and his shoulder injury. See, Mike Williams might come down hard on his shoulder like in week 4 and still play through it, maybe miss the rest of the series or something, and then just be on the injury report the next week, maybe not even be questionable, but lo and behold, the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, he doesn't really do much. What happened? This is something I think we can be better at in fantasy, which is knowing not when an injury necessarily is going to affect availability, but is still going to affect quality of play.
Sonny Michel is back at practice.
Yeah.
And I think all of us, I don't like speaking in blanket terms, Bloom, but I'll do it anyway for this one. I think all of us are like really wanting Damian Harris to do something, look something, and act, be the guy that we thought that he could be. And I don't know. It's the Patriots backfield. It's going to be full of fun and heartache and misery and rotations. And here's Rex Burkhead getting too many touches. Like that's just kind of fit. That's just fit and form for what they do in New England. But Michel is back in practice at least.
Yeah, this is the plot this week in the Patriots backfield. Every week there's a new plot. Week 1 it was Michel on PUP, Lamar Miller signed, who's still on PUP, by the way. And then it's Rex Burkhead isn't going away. And then it's Damian Harris is having a great week of camp and really showing that he can be the number 1 running back and even do more in the passing game than Michel. But now there's Michel out there, and pretty sure he's going to be activated from the PUP list if he wasn't already. He dressed for practice today, doing some things out there with the team. That doesn't sound like he's physically unable to perform, does it? But, see, we're getting to that age where we might be getting on the PUP list soon, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, for the Sex God pod. Look, then again, some men father children into their 60s or 70s, so you never know. But Michel, I could do any number of jokes from this on Michel and how he should make you feel for fantasy leagues, because it's definitely not aroused or excited to draft him, even though he's back on the field, right? I mean, see, at this point, Lord Reeves, Rich Rebar, said, I still won't draft Michel over Damian Harris. And I tend to agree with that, right? We know what Michel can do. He got a ton of opportunity last year. He still wasn't very productive with it. We know that he's not going to get that kind of opportunity this year, no matter how it breaks out, if Harris doesn't overtake him. And with Cam Newton, now look, Cam Newton can make this running game better, but Cam Newton is there at the goal line now. So really, what were you starting Michelle for last year? To get the chance of those touchdowns in the 20-plus carry games. I don't know if either of those are coming. So even though Michelle is back and it makes the Patriots backfield more difficult to predict, it shouldn't make it more difficult to decide whether or not you're taking him.
When you went on that rant, Bloom, I was like, man, you're really angling for that Manscaped sponsorship.
I want it because it's. I think that there's a lot more as men that we could be doing, and we're going to eventually be the liberators.
Whew, that's a big one. We're going to wrap up today's news and notes show for training camp with thoughts on the Chicago battle at quarterback, and Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles. And you're hearing some good things about Mitchell Trubisky, which I always take with like a block of salt, not a grain of salt, but like like a salt lick for us people from the country. Like you're throwing out that salt lick for not the medicated one, but your regular salt lick for your cows. Like, yeah, and no preseason. That's the other thing. And I'm thinking poor Allen Robinson. So, there's
Exactly.
one asset from the Bears passing game that I would want, and that is Robinson at a certain level. Although I think what's he like wide receiver 11 right now, top of my head, something like that. But this, competition, this battle seems to be somewhat heated, although we're hearing positive things about Trubisky that I can't really believe.
Right. Well, there's anytime you hear something positive about Trubisky, see, again, this is something that we've learned more and more about the longer we've been doing this show and paying attention to this stuff closely. Sometimes, not all the time, not most of the time, but sometimes a positive drumbeat about a player is just to get the player's confidence up. And with Trubisky, what's the story about Trubisky? He wanted the TVs turned off at Hallis Hall, right?
Right.
I mean, once you do something like that, and I hate it's so cruel, right, Cease? Because we're nice guys. I mean, in real life, we wouldn't take somebody's most vulnerable moment and define them by it the way we do in football. But that's how it is. And confidence is such a massive part of this. And Mike Lombardi had talked about it in his column a few weeks ago that they have to start Trubisky week 1 unless they're just done with him because the confidence hit he'll take if he's not the starter week 1 will make him basically be done, which means, look, fast forward into the story, Trubisky's not the answer. But think of it in movie terms. And I've realized, by the way, Cease, that my brain really was rotted by getting to watch so much TV and movies when I was a kid. Because I think of in video games, because I think of everything in terms of like a video game or a TV or a movie when I'm trying to explain something. But in the movie, you have the first day of camp, right? Trubisky, inaccurate, doesn't have the team's confidence. Foles trying to get the team's confident. He's Foles. He's not a practice guy. Foles is a gamer, right? I mean, if Vic Foles was a practice quarterback, maybe we wouldn't have to wait so long to see what he could do. And you could see, first day of camp, they're saying, well, you guys are going to have to work, and we'll see who can outwork the other quarterback to be the starter. And then the montage kicks in, the music, right? And you see them getting better and better every day of camp. Except no, they're still the same quarterbacks.
Right.
They're still the limited.
You're the best around.
Yeah.
No, that's it. And then they're just like the same. Right. Incomplete passes.
Exactly.
Somebody who's very good at video editing. One, get a hold of me because I got a video I need edited.
Yeah.
For a pitch. And then two, if you're good at video editing, somebody put that together. Like, that you're the best. And then like it's Trubisky and Foles with the passes just hitting the ground.
Right.
It would be awesome.
Adequate enough to hold off the other guy and hold on to your job.
He's not that good.
Enough. Yeah.
You'll be good enough.
You're better than a bad quarterback. Look, it's bad. Like you said,
Matt Nagy wants to keep his job.
Right.
We could do this, man.
Right. Ryan Pace needs to pay his mortgage. Look. This is bad for the Bears offense. I think the bottom line here is no matter who starts week 1, and in your 2 quarterback superflex leagues, you're still paying attention. Every starting quarterback has value. I don't think you're going to see Foles elevate the offense. I don't think you're going to see Trubisky take any kind of big step forward. We know how this story ends up. So you're right, Cease. You really, I wasted a lot of time on these tangents, but I like tangents. It's really bad for Allen Robinson. It's bad for David Montgomery. If you're looking for players to have a ceiling year, it's not going to happen in the Bears offense, not with the quarterback play that they have. And we were just talking about Cam Newton. Cam Newton was out there, but I don't know.
Hey, it was out there. By the way, we have a lot of video editors in our
I
chat
know.
room
We have a
because I'm seeing
great
Diego.
community. I know.
I wonder if you can touch Diego's drum set, right? Because I'm
Mhm.
like, don't touch my drum set. Don't
Yeah.
touch it.
Yeah. We've got a lot of talented
And then
people. You know,
Bama.
we talk about, I think among our community, we could probably do something. Like we need to start some sort of pirate television station or something with everybody that we have, and they can market it and brand it, make a website, and we'll start the revolution.
I love the fact that we all come together, right? All different backgrounds, all different jobs, everything coming together to love football and to build this great community that we have. It's fantastic. It is great. And we love you guys. We certainly appreciate you very much. Of course, we've got more training camp news and notes coming up tomorrow, which I'm going to have some nice Broncos news.
Ooh,
I'll just tease that one, Bloom. There's one of our topics. It is a Broncos
it's a Bronco
show,
show.
and there's some stuff going on that you need to know about. We will get to that and more. A lot of people out there, hey, love the show. How can I support the show? Go to footballguys.com. First off, sign up for our free daily newsletter, news items that are commented on by me and Sigmund and Joe Bryant. So check that out. That's a good way to kind of dip your toe. It's free. Hey, you like what we do, then consider a subscription to Football Guys, a very good price, an annual price, Bloom. It's not any sort of monthly thing. I know, other services have monthly charges and all this. This is an annual price. It's a very, very good price. And that's the way you help out the show. You guys have listened, some of you from day one in 2006. We're we're asking you for your support if you can help us out. It's definitely something we appreciate. It's definitely something that would put out 50,000 pages of content each season. So just thank you guys for checking out footballguys.com. And that's why, the Audible, our newswire, our newsletter, all this stuff, we've got these free items for you because it's like, hey, just check us out. And if you like us, subscribe. And that's the way that you support the show. We don't do the super chat stuff. I know there's a lot of podcasts I watch now, Bloom, that are doing that. And it's like, that's pay me to answer your question. Like, anyway, it's a little weird. We don't do that on this show. I have no plans of doing that personally as the program director. So let's just do this thing. Let's build the community. Let's have fun. And if you want to support our show, you like what we do, please check out footballguys.com. So that's it. We thank you guys very much. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9-ish.
Yeah.
It depends
Same-ish
on
time.
kind of. It depends on when my coffee kicks in. Sorry, everybody. When you're a night owl, it means you're not a morning person. So you got to be one or the other. And you can be as productive, Bloom.
Yeah.
This is another podcast, but you can be as productive being a night owl as you can being an early bird.
More productive, even. More productive. I like that feeling when it's 1 or 2 a.m. and I'm working. Not that I do it anymore. And you're one of the only people awake. It's a good feeling. No, not in New Orleans. In New Orleans, well, 24-hour bars and everything. Everyone's always awake. Not as much
Right.
now. Yes, know thyself, Cease. That's the do you, and don't worry. Now more than ever in the year 2020, the world is ready for everybody to be individuals. David Dodds had that tremendous piece at the end of I asked him about skateboarding because he was a skateboarding pioneer.
Mm-hmm.
He said, just do you, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. See, you've got everyone up, awake, and around, and out here in Roxborough, Bloom. I'll quote Jerry Judy. Got bears walking in the crib and everything.
Yeah.
My neighbor
Beat the pots and pans.
Just yesterday had a bear in his front tree in the day.
Yeah.
Usually they come out at night, but the bear was up there, like, I think he was trying to eat bugs out of the tree.
Sure, but the bears, they're not like Colorado. What are they? Colorado black bears? I mean, they're not really a threat. They're just looking for some free food. They're just looking for an easy, cushy gig like any of us.
Right.
We just beat on some pots and pans, make some noise.
It's the mountain lions. I'm more scared of the mountain lions than anything, which are out here as well.
Yeah,
so
that's your apex predator.
Yeah, because they'll see you before you see them. The bears are just like, what are you doing? They just kind of look at you and then waddle away.
Yeah, they watch the mountain lion and they say, that looks exhausting. I just want to find a garbage can.
What is it that I have the T-shirt of, Bloom? I'm always at least a little bit scared.
A single bear. The Twitter of a single bear, the stream of consciousness of a single bear. Highly recommend it.
Highly recommend you all. Thank you. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Stay tuned and stay frosty.